Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Manaster, Science Goddess with Read Science, and my co-host Jeff Shaumeyer is joining me. I'm sitting in Illinois, and Jeff is near Washington, D.C. And our guest today is Liz Heinecke, who is in Minnesota. I love the internet. And Liz is a returning guest. She has been on before because Liz has written so many books, and it's amazing. And so Liz is the author of many, many books, including this one. Today we will look at primarily biology for kids. Happy to have this book as a biologist. And then we'll bring Jeff, our physicist, along to yeah.
I get to play Dr. Watson today. It's like, I'm sorry, can you explain that biology to me?
I think this book is great
Yes.
for this. So I'm going to go ahead and read your bio in the back of the book, which I thought was actually fun. Good. Liz Heinecke has loved science since she was old enough to inspect her first butterfly. After working in molecular biology research for 10 years and getting her master's degree, Liz left the lab to kick off a new chapter in her life as a stay-at-home mom. She soon found herself sharing her love of science with her 3 kids as they grew, journaling their science adventures on her online educational platform, kitchenpantryscientist.com. Her desire to spread her enthusiasm for science to others soon led to regular TV appearances, speaking engagements, and her books, Kitchen Science Lab for Kids, Outdoor Science Lab for Kids, STEAM Labs for Kids. Oh, I have this one. I have most of your books, Liz, by the way, but this one I could find this one. Star Wars Maker Lab. This was cool that you did this with DK. Yeah. Kitchen Science Lab for Kids, Edible Edition, the Kitchen Pantry Scientist, Chemistry for Kids, and Radiant, The Dancer, the Scientist, and a Friendship Forged in Light, an adult nonfiction narrative about Marie Curie and Loie Fuller. And this was a diversion from your other books, but very good. I enjoyed it. So, but we see you are set up with all your experiments. And along the way, I have some questions because you've done this a long time. And like, what have you learned? You're probably like really good at this now. So, Jeff, yeah. But I'll let you, or Liz, okay. You can say hi to everybody.
Yep. Welcome back, Liz. Yeah, it is nice to see you again after it's been quite a while now since I think your first book for kids, Kitchen Science for Kids, and we had a little chat at the kitchen table. That was a lot of fun.
And a guest. You had one of your kids with you.
Yes, and as the physical scientist, I did learn a lot of things from this book, and I'm very happy to have done. And I have sometimes my questions to begin get a little out of hand. So I have a very easy question, because I think this is where I'd like to start talking about this book, which is out of the ordinary for the sorts of things we usually talk about, but a very, very nice book and one that kids can enjoy. So this little set of questions, I want to emphasize the subtitle of the book, which is Science Experiments and Activities Inspired by Awesome Biologists Past and Present. And now I want to have a clearer idea of the book as we talk about it. So would you just give us your marketing overview of what age kids the book is for, the activities it's aimed at, and also about the very handy and unique format of the presentation?
Yeah, so I think the target age, according to the publisher, is sort of 7 to 12, but I always tell people there's a lot of wiggle room on both sides. I've actually had a lot of adults tell me that they really enjoyed reading the biographies of the scientists in this book.
Yes.
But I put it together. I've always loved, even when I first started writing books, I really enjoyed sort of researching the people who came up with the concepts I was talking about and who experimented with them and wrote about them. And I think that storytelling is one of the best ways you can teach science. And I think that hearing a story of how someone discovered something or reading a story of what someone worked on, and then actually taking those concepts and finding a way to let kids try a hands-on project related to that work, whether it's something, whether it's an actual science experiment, yes, like making agar plates and growing microbes, or whether it's a project like some I'll show you today that just help kids. A lot of biology is really hard to, if you don't have a microscope and expensive equipment, it's really hard to explore it. So I really looked for ways in this particular book that kids could safely explore the concepts. I have a balloon with cornstarch goo in it that serves as a model of a macrophage, so kids can explore phagocytosis. Because it would be great if you could say, hey, just get out your microscope, grab some white blood cells, and let's play with this. But kids can't do that.
Yeah.
We don't want bleeding anywhere.
Yeah. But I had a lot of fun, actually. It's fun to look at historical experiments and try to sort of reproduce them. So I had fun trying to come up with some for this book, and I'll show you a couple of those. But I really wanted to integrate the story of scientists with hands-on projects to make science more memorable and more interesting and more inspiring for kids, because I was able to feature a lot of scientists that a lot of people don't know about, who are really important scientists who were overlooked, because of racism or because of gender, for whatever reason, they've been sort of overlooked. So I wanted to sort of highlight some of those scientists.
Yes,
as role models for kids.
You've got a fascinating collection of people in here. And I think I agree with you very much. I don't like to think of science as a history of personalities and discoveries, but science is done by people, and hearing the people's stories are certainly a part of that. And there's some very interesting people in here. And since you mentioned the diversity of the science and over the time scale of more than 100 years, I thought that was a very admirable thing about this book. And also, I want to commend the illustrations of Kelly Ann Dalton.
Yes.
Particularly
what a team effort. This book.
Could you, Joanne, if you can find Lab 20, what did I write down the number? Anyway,
Esther Letterberg.
Here it is, Lab 14.
I will get it for you.
Find the picture of Lab 14. There she is. Okay, I want to talk about her as an example. She was one of my favorite examples.
Oh, sorry.
But first,
the camera on this platform is
first about the illustrations. I think it's worth making a positive comment that you have worked hard and found lots of interesting people with lots of diversity and background in gender and ethnicity and all sorts of things. And I loved the illustrations, and not least because it showed us that diversity without having to make it something that had to be discussed in the text or something, not as an avoidance, but just as a built-in part of everything that's happening. That was really brilliant. And
I love this.
The illustrations are lovely. She did a really beautiful job with all the little symbols and things. So it becomes almost I don't know what the game with kids is, but looking for things in the pictures, the little symbols and the little things going on, see how they associate with the person's biography, are really terrific. And one of the ones that I really remember is this Lab 14, which was inspired by Susan LaFlèche-Picotte, who is from the Omaha tribe in Nebraska, born in 1865. And you gave us her biography, where she became interested in public health, and also developed a keen interest in houseflies as a likely vector for diseases in domestic settings, and introduced the idea of using screen doors to keep houseflies out of the house. And I loved the activity you suggested in there, where kids make flies from clay and Q-tip legs, and it involves an ink pad. I wonder if we could use that as a model to describe how one of these labs is presented. If you'd go over that for me.
I don't have that particular project with me, but I love that project because I try to find things that kids can really relate to. And every kid has seen houseflies, right? Yeah. And I think it's really fascinating. I mean, putting screen doors in houses is similar to hand washing. It's a very inexpensive thing you can do to make a big difference in prevent the spread of some diseases. So in this project, kids build I mean, I have some Play-Doh here. I don't have any Q-tips, but I can demonstrate it. They build house flies out of Play-Doh. They will put a head, you know, it should have 6 legs. It has 2 legs. With little like recycled plastic things on it.
Well, they've researched online to see what house flies look like at this point.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Online. They recreate a house fly with cotton swab feet. And then they draw some, on one piece of paper, they draw some food, for example, and another piece of paper, on the same piece of paper, they don't even have to draw it. They can take like some paint or ink, which represents something like rotten food or feces, something that has, you know, bacteria in it, microbes in it that can cause disease.
Yeah.
Then they put the feet of their fly in the paint, and then they buzz their fly around, and it lands on the food they drew. But it's a really great way for kids to see how flies can carry disease, and it was fun to write about. I try to, when I can, add some little, you know, gross details like flies.
Yes.
Yeah, about how their mouth parts and how they're always licking their feet, and they digest a lot of things by actually vomiting on it, and then to dissolve it. So that was a really fun project where I could talk about an interesting, important scientist, and then have a project kids could do to really explore how houseflies spread disease by microbes around from one thing to another.
Kids love the gross details.
They do.
And sure. I was thinking about sort of stereotypes of kids from when I was a kid. Even it's like everybody had a science fair, everyone built a diorama with dinosaurs, or you know, whether Coke dissolves nails and things like that. And they all seem, later on, they're almost embarrassing sometimes because they seem simple and simplistic. And it's like, it would be very easy to look and say, really, a clay fly with Q-tips and you dip it in. But these provide memorable examples that you can hang real information on later.
I actually saw an early review. I think it was from a librarian, maybe, that simple. They're not really, you know, science experiments, but I actually think that some of these, they're not, you know, everyone wants science to be fizzing and exploding all the time. And I do have a lot of projects. I try to find projects that are super engaging, but often it's, you know, it's simple illustrations like saying, this is how, you know, this is what a coronavirus particle looks like. I just made it out of Play-Doh with little Play-Doh spikes. And this is how a white blood cell might engulf a coronavirus particle. I talk about the scientist that Elie Metchnikoff that discovered phagocytosis, how a macrophage I think I lost my video. And then
you're coming back.
Talk about how they can spit them out and represent them.
Yeah.
And I also talk about antibodies, and then kids can building little simple clay models can be really interesting. I can talk about how Joanne Almeida, who discovered coronaviruses, I talk about the scientist and coronaviruses, how she used molecules called antibodies, Y-shaped molecules. Antibodies are complicated, but kids can learn their Y-shaped molecules that can attach onto foreign invaders and make them clump together so that the immune system can recognize them, you know, for example, if you're vaccinated, but also so that they can be more easily recognized by white blood cells. So it's a great way to sort of help kids integrate a lot of concepts and get their hands onto them, because, and then if they're interested, they can go online and look at amazing videos of, you know, macrophages gobbling up bacteria or whatever they want to.
And all the aspects of, I mean, you call them activities, experiments and activities is a way for kids to make these associations, build these images, put things together, and doing things with your hands is an important part of that too, right?
Right. And there is an issue with biology, because it's usually not today. We are going to do this in 1 hour. You need days, weeks, months, years. You know, you just observe a bear today. You know, you need a lot more time to really understand how bears grow and eat. And
And I do have activities. For example, I talk about ray Ray Wynn Grant, who is a wildlife biologist, and she studies carnivores, which is awesome. That's super inspiring for kids. Yeah, Joanne, maybe you can show the picture. I have it.
I've got it. Yeah. Here we go. Here's
for
me.
her, I talk about the activity is for kids to actually, observe animals and do activities. But also, there's a simple activity you can do that I think I learned from one of the citizen science projects, where you just put some cookie crumbs in a plastic bag and leave it out on your sidewalk, and you can see, how many ants come, what kind of ants come. So you have to find simple versions of the, often very exciting science that adults are doing. But it's a way, watching a squirrel in your backyard is the starting point for observing a grizzly in the wild someday, or tracking it with, a radio collar when you're an adult possibly. And it's really about sort of sparking kids' interest.
Yes. The hands-on experience. And we can attest that actual real scientists build models. They're not often out of clay and sticks, but they could be.
It could be
Sometimes
Legos.
they're more
I've seen everything.
And most of the scientists I know usually, especially the theorists who say, well, this is how, here's a model I've made for how fluids worked, used to be something in particular. And they would usually refer to it as a toy. Having the aspect of play is important, because that's how the scientists would build a model that's not quite right, but maybe has a few characteristics. They think of it as a toy, as something that you play with, and you get insights from doing that because you put things together.
Yeah, and it, and it's also, you can incorporate some fun into it. So, for example, these balloon white blood cells, macrophages that I made. Yeah. I have kids in the book. I have kids mix 2 parts cornstarch with 1 part water, and they make this non-Newtonian fluid, which all kids love to play with. Yeah, and that's biology. It's a plant starch. It's chemistry. It's
physics.
So I don't. This is in a lot of my books, and I don't explicitly talk about the science of cornstarch goo in this book, but it engages kids to want to try the project, and then maybe they'll learn something about white blood cells. So you try to make it fun and educational at the same time, because I think I'm still like a 9-year-old kid at heart. I do try to make all my projects, fun as well as educational.
Well, I do want to ask about educational. So I thought, wow, you've published so many books so far. Do you ever have a teacher say, hey, we're using this in school, we're using this in our classroom, or a library or science museum, saying, yeah, we have a camp and we're going through your book?
I do. It's great. And I have lots of, I know people who run summer camps. I know kids who run their own camps. And what I often do is they'll ask me to do it, and I'll say, I can't do it because I'm really busy, but I'm going to tell you how to do it. And because lots of the projects can be scaled up really easily, the red cabbage juice that you can put in little cups. Add vinegar to one, it's an acid-base indicator, it turns bright pink. Yes. Add baking soda to one, it turns green. Combine them, there's a chemical reaction that makes carbon dioxide, it bubbles over. But that is one that kids love. It's easy to do with big groups of kids. I try to keep my stuff not expensive for the most part, so that all kids can do it and that teachers can do it in school, because they all have limited funds too.
I had a conversation years ago with a colleague about things that are good for bringing science to very young children. And I want to see whether you agree, because I think you do hear that we might be on the same page, that some people would tell us, like, well, these are unfinished stories. You haven't explained everything clearly. And we felt then that something like jigsaw puzzles that just use the names of chemical elements without further explanation gets these vocabulary things out. The names are funny and fun to say, and they become raw material for later more learning. And so the learning comes in layers and not as single episodes that cover everything. And you've got all these activities, that the fly with landing on the poo, that's going to give something for kids to hang on to. I think that sounds like sound pedagogy. I guess you do too, Joanne. I guess you do too. Yeah.
Well, I have, my kids are all grown, but yeah, I have for kids who would have loved all of this.
I think that's true. When you said that, it sparked a memory. Like, I think when I was really young, I read A Wrinkle in Time, and I became obsessed with the word mitochondria, and I had no idea what it meant, but it made me interested in, whatever science. I just thought, oh, science is cool. Mitochondria. I think kids do love words, and I think that's a really good point.
They're funny and cool, and once you know them, then it's a connection ready to plug into something.
Well, when I do science outreach, I always use the scientific names for chemicals and have kids repeat them after me, and they love it. If it's a really long word, I'll break it up into syllables and sing song it back and forth. But kids do, they really respond to that. Yeah,
I noticed that in the book, and in a way that would be, hello parents, here's a quick message. There are these words and they're left unexplained. Don't worry about it right now. It's part of the fun, and it lays the little Easter eggs for the kids to enjoy later. And they're fun to pronounce, or to try to pronounce.
Totally.
Well, that's one thing in biology you might remember studying is vocabulary is a big part of it. And some people get overwhelmed in biology studies because they're like, there's just so many words. There's so many, new words. But I think if you're introducing it when they're young, and it's really helpful. Might take away some of that overwhelm when they get older in a biology class.
I say that all the time. I tell parents this, I tell kids this. I say, the idea is to get kids, when kids do science at home, it becomes interesting, it becomes exciting. And then when they do have science classes when they get older, it's not as intimidating. And I think that's really important.
And it helps with the overwhelming part too, because when I would talk to people about reading science books, particularly textbooks, if I were talking to a student, their biggest anxiety seemed to be this, like, I read this chapter and I didn't understand everything. It's like, science books are not meant for fiction style reading. You approach them differently, and it's okay if you don't understand everything the first time. Sometimes you accumulate the pieces and it can be a while before they all come together. And so you just need to relax some. And so if you have a past with activities like this that can help get you past the anxieties of not understanding everything immediately, that's a great burden in the avoiding the overwhelming feeling, Joanne, I think.
Right. And actually, it's interesting. So I think back to your kitchen science experiment book, and I believe that's why you were on in the first place. And then it was the STEAM and then chemistry. And now we're finally at biology. So it is interesting because of the nature of biology, how maybe it took you a while to get, how can I do a biology book?
Yeah, it is somewhat intimidating. But then when I started doing it, I realized that you don't, like I said, you don't have to actually have a microscope or do the actual experiment. You can really explore the world of biology in other ways. I mean, I love, one of my favorite scientists in the world, who I know Joanne also knows, is Danielle Lee.
Danielle Lee, she's so wonderful. We know her personally.
Yes, cool.
You
and
got
there she
it.
is. Beautiful illustration.
She is one of the nicest, smartest people you've ever met. She's an amazing educator too. And
right.
I actually talked to her about, what project do you think would be good to pair up with you? And she immediately said, my favorite project for kids is to have them look for four-leaf clovers. And I talk about this in the book more extensively, but I love it. She talks about getting interested in science as a kid, partly because of looking for four-leaf clovers and pattern recognition. And she talks about the importance of pattern recognition in science, and, whether it's physics, whether you're looking out at the stars and looking for similarities and differences, or whether you're looking at a patch of clovers or, a monolayer of cells. A scientist's job is to notice things that are different, right?
Yes.
Great point.
Or interesting in some way.
It's universal.
So some people might say, oh, that's a simple experiment. But the more I talked to her, the more I realized how it is a perfect experiment for this book. Even though she studies pouched rats, this is a very sort of experiment that all kids should do, just to sort of open their eyes and to help them understand sort of what scientists do. And all kids love to look for four-leaf clovers. So I think it's a perfect experiment, actually.
Actually, one I liked, which I went, well, darn, I didn't learn this till university, was the gene expression with Legos and Jacob Renault. And, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, Legos. And boy, I wish I had that back when I was trying to get the Lac-Operon in my head.
I know, I had a couple of biologists say, that's really great. You know, you have kids doing gene expression, but I'm a really visual person. And what always helped me the most, you know, reading science textbooks was looking at the illustrations. And I think that's partly because the illustrations simplify concepts without the vocabulary. So then you can go back and sort of learn the vocabulary. But the idea that I think there are a lot of, you could do a lot of molecular biology, gene expression, cool stuff with Legos. I think it would help, you know, even college students understand it better and more quickly.
These days, I'm working in disability support at the university, and the concept, the idea, the thing that we remember that swirls around a lot is that different people have different ways that they take in information better, and the more of those channels you can stimulate, the better. So yes, reading the textbook, but having the pictures tells you things in a different way. It's not an old-fashioned view would be, well, it simplifies something, or no, the way we look at it now is that it uses a visual channel, and then you have the kids building these flies or looking for clovers. There's the activity involved. That's another channel. There's the touching and the manual activity. That's another channel. And you know, I'm glad we have a chance to explain this to people who might say, well, but what's the point of this book? Why do you build clay flies with cotton swab legs and look for four-leaf clovers? And it's because all of those things are foundational inputs for understanding, for feeling and experience how you go about doing science. Looking for a four-leaf clover is an activity, and it does have, as you say, many. That was a brilliant suggestion on her part, that it has many things in common with the way scientists go about doing science.
There are layers of understanding, and oh, sorry.
Oops, did we have a video glitch here?
Little glitch, sorry.
That's okay. You know, Ramon Cajal, he's one of my favorites. And, you know, and of course, he's known for his beautiful drawings.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
I was like, this is so great that this is in here, because, you know, every really good biologist who's more of a naturalist is a good either photographer or artist, you know, because we make observations and we need to record that. And I think that's important to have here too, like, so pattern recognition, but also we need to record those observations in some way. And who else was it? She did the butterfly life cycle, right? Caterpillar, butterfly. She's early on in the book.
Yes.
Same thing.
Maria Sibylla Marianne.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Very early on. And I thought, you know, the biological illustration. So maybe, you know, there are budding artists out there, and biology is a great, I mean, we always need medical illustration. Everything's not just taking a photo, or what now, of course, we can edit those images on a computer, but I feel like biology lends itself so well to a real artistic expression.